Now that we've cut, easiest way to double check, does it fit in between the two boards? Yes, it does. I have just a little bit of give, that's totally fine. If yours is a hair tighter and slips in, great. It's just got to fit between those two top end boards. Now we can glue it down, and we're going to put it centered as best we possibly can right down the center line. All right, just like always, glue, spread it out so it's a thin coat. And then lay it down as close to center as you can. And I have found that if you simply press down, that's right there and there, just press it for about 30 seconds. Hold on to it. You can see how it moves. I just had to move it back. So keep an eye on it. Press and hold down. After about 30 seconds, it should grab well enough that it won't pop off. It won't move. And then we'll brace it. We'll put some clamps on it to give it some better adhesion. So 30 seconds. All right, that should stay well enough so I can do the next step. Now we need to put pressure directly down. Now I don't have clamps with deep enough throats to just push right there. So I simply use these boards that I've already cut, these little pieces of wood, and some of these blue clamps. They work really well. Okay, so I'll move these off. I'm going to hold that in place and clamp it down right there. This does not need a ton of pressure. Those of you that like to squeeze the clamps with incredible amount of force, there's no reason. Besides, I don't want to dent my nice face right here. Or I guess this is the back. I don't want to dent that either. All right, grab a few more, and then use the second piece, and just continue the same routine. Clamp and clamp. All right, I probably could have gotten away without the top one because this board's so close, but at least now there's pressure along the entire piece, along the entire boards. All of these are snug. They're not going to fall off. Now take this and put it aside. It needs about a half an hour to dry, and then we can put the actual braces that these are back on. Now we're going to get back to bracing this side, and here's my three little ones. They'll go here at the bottom. There's one more piece that has to go on. This is just a reinforcing 1/8-inch piece of plywood that goes here where these large tracings are, and it'll sit there. This is just reinforcement for the bridge that goes on the other side, that holds the strings. So we need to, and you don't necessarily need to round the corners, but I like to kind of match what that is. So round off the corners on the disc sander or small belt sander over there. And the next thing with that is we need to sand these down as well. We don't want them to be totally square or rectangular. And we want them to be lighter, less material. So we're going to sharpen the edges a little bit, both ends, and we're going to round the top. And I'll show you that on the sander. For the bridge, just simply eyeball it, just round it off. For those other pieces, this is what it's going to look like when we're done. You can see that I tapered both ends. I don't know, about 1.5 inches in or so. It could be a little more, a little less, but they're just tapered down to not totally sharp, but really close to actually sharpening that end. On the top, we rounded it over. So I did that by sticking it in this and then slightly going up. Now the dangerous part of that is that my pointer finger right here is very close to that belt. I have hit my finger and had to put a Band-Aid on, it's happened and everybody does. So I'm going to show you an additional way to do it. If this seems too unsafe, you're just not certain that you want to go that route. But when you're done, you can see that it's tapered. It looks like the top of a bullet, if you will, or it's just kind of rounded up. It's not totally rounded over. But either way works. We want to get rid of some material and we want to get that rounded over. Here's how I did it the first time. I can hold it on the end, and I put my thumb and finger on the back like this, and I just push here and then turn. And I can kind of do the whole edge at once. I can flip it over and do the same thing. Now, if my hands are too close, there's a screw right here. Unscrew it, and this lays back, and I can simply do this. It takes a little bit longer, but my fingers are not nearly as close to the sander as I pull them away as I get really close. Okay, and that just rounds that over like that. Both ways work. These pieces, they usually have a little bit of extra wood that didn't quite come off with the sander. Take some 220 and just sand those edges, and they should come right off. I don't want any sharp edges, so a little light sanding will really help all of this. Okay, and that's it. That's all I need for that. Remember, these are inside, so it's not like we're going to touch them a lot, but now's your chance to make them nice and smooth. Take off any sharp edges. Now, I do not want to sand the bottom. Don't round off the bottom. I need that to sit flat. So round everything else a little bit or soften it a little bit, but don't sand the bottom edge. That's going to be glued straight down. Same thing on this. I'm just taking off any sharp edges and any extra wood that didn't come off in the sander. So it's nice and smooth. Okay, that doesn't take much, and that's it. Get rid of all the dust. That one goes there, and that one goes there. Now you can see this is bent. It actually cups up. These braces are meant to prevent that. That's why we're doing this. So we're just going to put a little glue and start clamping everything on. Gets a little tricky as we start putting clamps on, but that's the way it is. So again, like always, a little bead of glue. And usually less is more in this case. Spread it out with your finger. We don't want so much that it squeezes everywhere. And then stick it down in place right in the box where you drew earlier. And I'm just going to hold it there for a few seconds because it's going to want to shift and move and get out of place. Now I can see glue squeezing out. That's fine. I'm going to wipe that off later with a wet paper towel. But for now, I just want it to hold in place. Okay. Yep, and it just popped up in the middle. And that's why we're putting these on. So I can kind of hold that and use my bigger clamps and kind of clamp inside a little bit and give it some pressure. And I'm going to put a little more pressure on these because they are preventing this board from bowing. Good, and I see glue all the way through. That's what I want to see. If there's a gap in the middle, if you need, you're welcome to use some more clamping, and we can probably clamp there or whatever it takes, but that is good. Okay, repeat, do the exact same thing on the middle one. Okay, nice and flat. Now on this one, this is pretty flat. If it had any kind of a curve to it, I'd want that curve to go opposite of this so they'd cancel each other out. But this one is really flat, so I don't have to worry about that. And again, you're just going to glue it right there and clamp it down in place. Good. That looks good, and I'll set it aside to dry. Now obviously I still have 3 more to put on, but these little braces have that in the way. So I'm going to show you next how to notch them so they'll fit down flush, similar to these.